Some predators don't try to blend into the crowd. Instead, they weaponize fear to keep the world at bay. In the mid-1980s, Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, terrorized California by invading homes completely at random. When he was finally captured, he didn't put on a suit or smile politely like Ted Bundy. He painted a pentagram on his hand, shouted dark slogans, and sneered at the cameras. He wanted everyone to believe he was an untouchable, unshakable force of chaos. But forensic psychology tells us that extreme arrogance is almost always a defensive shield. Wearing a mask of pure evil requires just as much cognitive energy as pretending to be an innocent citizen. Underneath the rock star hair and the dark sunglasses he wore into the courtroom, Ramirez's nervous system was experiencing absolute chaos. The prosecutors weren't intimidated by his theatrical satanic displays, and as the physical evidence mounted, his subconscious began to panic. Maintaining a terrifying persona while facing the death penalty creates a massive internal conflict. Your biological survival instinct wants you to hide, shrink, and beg for mercy. But your ego demands that you look cold, dominant, and dangerous. This massive friction drains the brain's processing power. In behavioral profiling, we look for the exact moment this ego fatigue sets in. Because when the mind gets tired, the physical body begins to leak the truth. The first massive psychological leak happened through a simple piece of plastic, his sunglasses. Ramirez wore them constantly to hide his eyes, knowing that the human gaze is the easiest way to read internal panic. But forensic behaviorists note that by blocking his vision in a dimly lit courtroom, he inadvertently increased his own cognitive load. He couldn't see the jury's faces clearly, forcing his brain to constantly guess and obsess over what they were thinking. The moment the judge ordered Ramirez to remove his glasses for witness identification, the mask cracked wide open. Without his shield, his eyes broadcasted pure vulnerability. If you look closely at the archival trial footage, his lower eyelids began to twitch uncontrollably, a condition known as blepharospasm. This is an involuntary nervous response to extreme, prolonged psychological stress. He was trying to glare at the witness, but his muscles were signaling absolute terror. As the horrific details of his crimes were read aloud to the courtroom, Ramirez's biology suffered a grotesque collapse. The perpetual flood of stress hormones completely wrecked his physical appearance over the course of a few months. His skin turned an ashen, sickly gray under the lights. His mouth, which usually held a confident, mocking sneer, began to dry out completely due to adrenaline spikes. He was literally suffocating on his own hidden anxiety. To counter this biological collapse, Ramirez heavily relied on the psychological phenomenon of duping delight. Whenever a survivor gave emotional, heartbreaking testimony, Ramirez would force a wide, toothy grin and look directly at the media cameras. To the public, it looked like pure sadism, but to behavioral profilers, that smile was a desperate, manual manipulation of his own facial muscles. He was trying to force his brain into feeling powerful again. The leakage quickly spread to his language. In his rare statements to the press and the court, Ramirez's syntax completely fractured. He stopped using coherent arguments and began speaking in short, repetitive, abstract phrases about death and darkness. Forensic linguists recognize this as cognitive regression. When the brain is overwhelmed by the reality of its own doom, it loses the ability to articulate complex thoughts, resorting to primitive, defensive chants. Even his famous courtroom stunts leaked his hidden desperation. When he held up his palm to show a drawn pentagram and shouted "Hail Satan," it wasn't a sign of supreme confidence. It was a classic third-party proxy distraction. He was desperately trying to redirect the jury's attention away from the blood spatter and fingerprint evidence and onto his theatrical persona. He wanted them to judge the myth, because he knew the math had already convicted him. By the final days of the trial, the fierce, menacing predator had completely vanished from the courtroom chair. The leakage had fully consumed his physical body. His shoulders slouched heavily forward, his head hung low, and his fingers tapped erratically on the defense table in a chaotic, unpredictable rhythm. The heavy cognitive weight of his terrifying double life had broken his spine. The illusion of the supreme monster was completely dead. The breakdown of Richard Ramirez proves an absolute law in forensic science. No matter how dark, loud, or aggressive a criminal's mask is, it cannot withstand the weight of reality. You can print symbols on your skin, you can wear armor, and you can scare the world. But your autonomic nervous system does not care about your reputation. It answers only to the truth, and it will gladly destroy your body to expose the coward hiding inside the monster. The leakage effect is the ultimate equalizer of human nature. Right now, the minor secrets and pressures you carry are molding your posture, shifting your eye movements, and altering your voice. You cannot turn it off. The more aggressively you try to hide what is rotting inside your mind, the louder your body will broadcast the truth to the world. You can wear the mask for a season, but eventually, the leak turns into a flood, and the truth wins.